All right, good morning, everybody. We're getting ready to get started. The camera is up here, but I'm going to be looking at my screen, so you're going to get a lot of upper eyelid from me if you're joining on Teams today. I'm sorry. But I'll be looking at my screen today because we are going to kick off our session here in just about 30 seconds on Outlook and Calendar, and I'm going to be screen sharing. I don't want to freak anyone out. I am sharing with you my live real-time Outlook and Calendar, so just know I'm not a zero inbox gal. There are many competing appointments on my calendar at the same time, all the time. So somebody is always mad at me because I'm not in their meeting and they invited me, and somebody is always asking me if I read their email. So maybe you can relate to that. But if not, just know that if your inbox doesn't look like mine, I'm happy for you. Okay, so good. All right, so it looks like we've got a pretty wide array of both in-person and online folks who have experience or expertise with Outlook and Calendar. If you are wanting me to specifically cover something, go ahead and put it in the chat or raise your hands up. I'm hearing somebody say that they might not be able to hear anything. Can you all hear me? Yay, nay, in the chat? Yes. Okay. So it looks like it might be some isolated speaker issues. Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and we'll get started. Barrett's going to be monitoring the chat and I'm going to just focus on screen drive-through. And I'm going to start over here by saying a couple of things first. Number one, I am in the client version of Outlook for the demo, meaning I've opened the app on my actual desktop. The web version and the client version sometimes have some small disparities, but that's getting closer and closer to parity over time. So in the new Outlook, which is also what I'm running, we don't really call it that anymore, it's just Outlook now because most everybody has been by choice or by force migrated into this new updated version of Outlook. So I just wanted to clarify that because sometimes there are some nuances that people have a specific use case for that you won't see depending on the versioning that I'm sharing. So just let me orient you a visual glossary of sorts to what you're looking at here if you're not someone who sees this view typically. Okay, a couple of things. We'll talk about how to set up your view, but essentially across the top, you have a ribbon of options that will appear for you. Home, View, and Help are sort of standard up there, and depending on what you click on, some different tool sets will show at the top. So these are Outlook-specific ribbon and option tools. If you are not somebody who wants to see your full folder anatomy, you can click on this little, I call it the hamburger, and that will hide your folder structure so you can just see your inbox. And then this is a reading pane. My reading pane is actually a picture, an AI Copilot generated picture of Atlanta, where I live. This is a view of Piedmont Park in watercolor. As you customize your Outlook experience, it will ask you if you want to create something AI imagery, and it sort of rotates. I picked a theme of the city of Atlanta in watercolors, and it changes every couple of days for me and just gives me a new calming image in my Outlook experience. So that's what you're seeing there. Also, down across the left rail, you're going to see a lot of icons for different apps inside the M365 experience. So up here, for example, I'm in Mail. I can click down one and get to my calendar. Because I am a Microsoft M365 Copilot user, meaning the paid Copilot license, I have a Copilot built-in plug inside my Outlook experience. I've also got a People tab, Groups, To Do. We'll kind of walk through a few of these. Org Explorer is something that you may or may not see depending on if your organization here at the university has an org chart established in your Active Directory. It's helpful for me because a lot of times people at Microsoft will send me an email and I have no idea who they are. And so clicking on that will help me figure out if I need to answer quickly or if I can take my time depending on whose org they sit in. I've got a OneDrive quick link here. Also Loop, some of you attended the Loop session yesterday that we talked about. That's built in here. And then Bookings, I have a Bookings page live. We also had a session yesterday on Bookings, and so you can see that here as well. This little waffle tray down at the bottom will pop out additional apps that are available, but I can also search for additional apps here as well. So it really is, if you are an Outlook user, that left rail can be your jump off point to anything else inside the M365 environment that you'd like to have. And you can, again, right click will get you the option to open up those apps in a new window or to unpin them from your left rail. So you can customize that a bit depending on what you use most frequently. So again, all of this that I'll cover at the first part of the session is really preferential Outlook settings or customizations. I think it's really important that you understand that out of the box and out of the can is not necessarily what you have to accept from pretty much any tool at Microsoft. Teams is the same way, very customizable in the left rail on what apps you see, in which order you see them, and that's on purpose. So we really want you to take a couple of minutes and set up your environment so that it's an environment that you feel comfortable in and that you can find things quickly. The modern way of working is that you get what you need, where you need it, when you need it, and we give you a lot of option for that. That can feel overwhelming if you don't take control of it and kind of stake your claim on what you want where. So the next place I'm going to go is actually up here to the top ribbon again. In Home, you have a couple of options. If I click into a mail itself, you'll see all of these light up. We'll talk about those in a minute, but I want to go to View up at the top and show you a couple of things. First of all, I have View Settings. This will open up a tray which will show you a lot of options for what you can see or not see inside of Outlook. A couple of quick tips. The first thing that's going to pop out at you in the mail settings is layout. I hear from a lot of people that sometimes they lose their emails because they went to a focused inbox and they did not see them in their main view. Chances are that's because you are allowing the AI in Outlook to sort your messages into a focused and an others sort of designation, and not everything is showing up in one unfiltered view. So if you are missing quote, quote, emails, number one, you probably have some focused and other inboxes that are set for you. You can eliminate that by just saying, please don't sort those for me. So that's a preference thing, but I don't want that to happen automatically. I like to see all my emails sort of in a flow of consciousness. That's how I manage how to respond to people and what comes in. The next thing is really important. As I've gotten older, I have moved from a small text and size spacing to a medium text and size spacing. And here in the next 5 years, I might be moving up to the large. That's a preferential thing that I think is really important for people to see. So I'm just going to hit save on large really quickly and just move this out of the way a little bit. You can see that that adjusted not a horrible amount, right? But enough. You see that spacing kind of shrink and expand. The visual space. You also have options on is that you can see these arrows that appear on the left side of a threaded conversation. Because I have my email grouped by conversation, every time someone replies to that original email, it's grouped and bound together in a conversation. For me, that compresses my inbox, and it means I can do some cool things with Copilot to summarize the whole thread, etc., which I'll show you. But you can always click down and see all of those if you want to expand that view. But again, that's what a threaded conversation looks like. So let me go back to my view window. Where did you go, little guy? And again, you have options on where you want the reading pane, if you want it on the right, if you want it down below, if you don't want a reading pane and you just want to look in line and have to double click your email. So many customizations. And again, it starts to get a little overwhelming, right? You could really spend a couple of hours going through each one of these. What I would say is find the things that bother you the most, right? If there's something that's really rubbing you the wrong way, very quickly make an address to that specific thing. And as you find ways that you're like, hey, you know, I really like this to happen or that to happen, you can absolutely come in here and do those customizations as you need them. You don't have to do them all up front. Something that advanced users often do inside their inboxes is something called conditional formatting and some of the actions. So we've got a wizard now that will walk you through that, but these are rules to personalize the colors of your incoming messages. For example, if you want the emails from your manager to be color coded as they hit your inbox to visually pop out. You can do that. That's different than subfolder rules where you send every email from somebody to a specific subfolder. Those are options too, but again, you can get by without these things. But if you are somebody who literally opens up Outlook and you're in it all day, some of these things help your flow a little bit. I don't have any of these set up. I just play whack-a-mole with my inbox, and I use Search and Copilot to help me weed through it. So I don't spend time anymore doing a lot of these customizations because I've used AI and the power of the search across the graph, the Microsoft graph, to really help me. And I'll show you some of that. The last thing that I'll show you here, two things. One is junk email. Your filtering at the institution level should be pretty tight. You shouldn't be getting a ton of junk email into your inbox. But for example, I'm seeing this @Edge that's coming through a lot. Jude Group, these are like marketing and strategic communication groups that somehow have made a pass through our filter. So when I go into those specific emails, I can tag them as junk, right? I can tell Outlook, hey, treat all of these as junk. But I also am seeing here that this is pretty standard right now. I could move it to strict if I wanted to. Now, usually institutions of education have this pretty tightly filtered. So again, just options there as well. And then the last thing I'll say is you have actions that you can customize to show up when you are in an email. So if I'm back over on home, you'll see I have things like delete, move to, report, reply with a meeting, etc. So I can customize what I want up on that ribbon. And this is where you would do it, right? So if you want to have the option to click into an email and have the move to a folder option right on your top ribbon, you can add that. Also, because I have a touch screen on mobile, you can do this too. You can decide what the actions are that will determine your touch screen variability. So right now, if I, for example, in the top one, swipe right, it automatically deletes because that's what I have it set to do, and my laptop is a touch screen, right? So I could change this to be some other action if I wanted to, right? And if I swipe from left, it's just going to mark it as red. Those are the two actions that I have established. Okay? All right, so any questions? Let me pause here on views and customizations of settings a little bit before we jump into something else. Any questions or things that you're wondering if you can or should do? Oh, gotcha. Okay. So you saw an email probably disappear on the top, but I just swiped right to make that delete on my actual screen. Yes, threaded conversations. Mm-hmm. It'll automatically connect, right? So when you get an email into your inbox, as people reply to that email or you reply to that email, it will automatically treat it as a conversation and band it together if that's the option that you have established. Yep. Sure. Yeah. So again, the question was, do you have to manually go in and thread those conversations to get them to group? The answer is no. That if you have that rule established, it'll do that for you. Great. Good question. Okay. Let's go in here and let me just, for example, open up. I'm going to just delete a couple of things here. Let me just show you options that you have also. So I'm hovering over this with my mouse right now. I have the option to keep a message at the top of my folder, right? So it's like a pin option if something's super important. And as new emails come in, if I still want that one to be at the top until I unpin it, I can do that with this little push pin. Obviously, you can only pin one thing at a time. So, it's only helpful for one. I use flagged emails, flag this message a lot. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But to me, when I flag an email, there's an action item in it for me. It's not that I don't have time to read it right now. It's that I've skimmed it and I actually have to take action on that. And I won't unflag it or delete it until I've taken action. So that's how I use flagged emails. And then I also have the option here to mark an email as read. Maybe I don't want to delete it. but I do want to just get it out of my notification band, my visual notifications. The other things that I have on the top here, you can see that I'm in my inbox. If I hit my hamburger again, I can pull out all of my subfolders. I have a lot of different, inbox folders. I used to use them a lot. Frankly, I don't use them at all anymore. I am only using my main inbox, and I will show you how I find or search for emails. I also don't really do a lot of deleting of my email until a lot of time has passed. I'll go through and delete like a week or a month's worth of emails, but I'm not doing a lot of daily deletion. At Microsoft as an organization, might have flickered a little bit. So because we have auto archiving set up, I don't have to worry about deleting old email. The institution will take care of that for me. Yes. Oh. Oh, look at you. I just honestly never tried it because I thought it was the same as Teams where you can only have one pinned at a time. So Albert, you taught me something today. I don't know that having a lot pinned would help me do what pinning is meant to do, but if it's working for you, more power to you. For sure. Okay, the other thing that I will say is I will frequently, after, let's say, for example, I'm presenting and I'm not presenting on Outlook where I could delete things as I'm going. So what I will typically do here is actually, let's say, for example, an hour goes by and I have a lot of unread emails here. I might come back to my filter. It's like a little degrading hamburger up here at the top of my inbox, and I might just filter by the emails that are unread, just to give myself a little bit of a visual filter of like, hey, let me just look at what I haven't seen yet, what's marked unread. If I click that again, it resets it to my full inbox. If I only want to look at flagged emails that I have marked for follow-up, I can do that here as well. There's other places you can see that, but just know that a lot of people get overwhelmed by looking at their full inbox. So you can filter that way. I can also band together by timelines. So I've got a lot of emails in here. I can, again, filter these differently as I need to. I also can sort by date, or I can sort by category, by who it's from. I can sort by size, importance, subject. I can put the oldest on the top or the newest on the top. Again, super customizable. Sometimes if I'm looking for something that I marked with an importance, like that little exclamation point, something came in with a high importance mark or tag, I'll do that. But the rest of these aren't, I just don't use these very much. Okay, I also, for example, when I click on a message thread, you see my whole ribbon comes to life. So here are some other ways that you can take action on an email other than mark it as read, flag, or pin. I have up here a move to. I can do this by right-clicking on the message as well, but if I want to use the move to button, I can move it to one of my subfolders. I can move it to archive. I can delete it right here. I can also create a different folder if I don't see one that I want. Also, super important for the security of your environment, if I see something come in that looks questionable, I should report it. Again, I can report it as junk, right? And that will treat it differently the next time I see one of those. But if you are seeing an email that looks suspicious, you should absolutely use the report button to report that to your cybersecurity team. That will help keep your institution safe and protected. I also have delete, but I have a drop down as well where I can ignore a conversation. So if I see a lot of people doing reply all, which makes me want to light folks on fire, just let me be clear. Nobody cares that you're saying like, okay, sounds good. If that's all you're contributing to an email thread, don't do it. You're not using good etiquette. So if that's happening on a pile-on, like this is a great email thread. My team actually won an award and we're really proud of that. So I'm not muting it because I like to hear everybody say how great we are. But, again, is it really essential that everybody says like, atta girl, congrats, congrats? Maybe. We could argue that it's good for culture. But at a certain point, maybe I don't want to see those notifications come through anymore. I can start to ignore that thread without deleting it necessarily, because deleting it will only delete what's currently there. It won't stop the notification of the new reply alls from coming in. So that's an unknown, lesser known feature that you can do instead of deleting. I also have a really important one that I use a lot. So let's say, for example, we have, if you don't know, when you type in words like congratulations, if you hover over them, they give you confetti. It's like one of my favorite things in Outlook. If I, for example, wanted to reply to an email thread with a meeting, right? We're back and forth. People are saying, hey, I think we need to meet about this. I have this button here that creates a meeting request from a message. So it automatically puts everyone on the meeting invite that's in that thread. So let me show you what that looks like when I click it. Go on, you can do it. I don't know why it's not. Let me try this one. Go for it. 1 sec. Blocked. My screen is blocked. Oh, there it is. It just was taking some time. Okay. Well, now I have 3 coming because I got a little click happy. So hold on. Oh, look at how many times I clicked it. I did the rookie thing. Sorry, guys. Okay, discard, discard. Let me get back to the orig. All right. So when I clicked this, it gave me a draft meeting invite. And again, it put everybody on the thread that was in the email conversation. Saves me a couple of steps, right? Now, this is going to be where we kind of transition a little bit into Outlook Calendar as a part of Outlook and do some tips and tricks here, because this is one that I touched on a little bit yesterday, but I wanted to kind of double click on how to save some time and manage your calendar well. So the first thing that I do always is look to reply all with a meeting, because again, I find it very helpful to have that inbox or that to line of my invite already filled out. It will also help me to look, again, this is Schedule Assistant. I can see it on the right-hand side, but I also have a tab up here. Inside our organization, everybody's calendar is automatically shared for free busy. It doesn't mean that I see people's details, right? But I do have the ability to see everyone's availability from a free or busy or tentative perspective. And that means I don't actually have to send anyone an email saying, hey, when are you free to meet? Or can you meet about this on this day at this time? That's a lot of wasted time and productivity. So I can click forward and try to find times where we can all meet visually this way. So I clicked on this time, I'm blocked out, Bill's blocked out, looks like we've also got Patricia blocked out, but Charlie and Rafa look like they could meet. That's not gonna work for us. So I can keep going through, find some time that maybe works. Let's say Patricia's on the thread, but we can actually meet without her. I can now really quickly see the rest of us are good to go. That time looks fine. We can just meet then. So here's the best thing about doing the reply all with a meeting. It puts the threaded email conversation in context automatically in the notes for the invite. So instead of having to retype and remind people why we're meeting about this thing, it puts that in the body of the invitation, which just, again, saves some time. There's other ways to do that, but I think it's a good tip if you're not used to using the AI tooling to do it, to start this. Some network issues. To see here on the right side, our Schedule Assistant. But if I click in my meeting invitation to Scheduling Assistant, the tab, I just have a different view of what that looks like. I can add additional people this way, optional, etc. If we have a physical room space that I want to check availability on, I can add it here as well. And that, again, will stack everybody's availability forward so that I can just scroll through really quickly and look for a gap. So I'm looking for the gaps in color where it looks like people are available mostly, and that's where I'm going to try to plant the meeting. So again, it's a good etiquette move. It links together not only our inbox from an Outlook perspective because we're looping that context into the invite, but it also is responsive to our calendar. All right, questions there? Okay, we're going to stick with this invite for a second, and I'm going to show you a couple of other options that I think are really important and useful. First is you have response options that are automatic, that request a response from people and allow for forwarding. If you don't want your invitation to be forwarded to other participants to join, you can unclick that. You can toggle that off so that your meeting is not forwardable to just anyone. You also have the ability to hide the attendee list. I don't see this often, but sometimes people don't want other folks to know who's coming and who's not to the meeting. Barrett likes to do this for sure. And honestly, that's a good privacy protection stance as well. Sometimes people will also evade capture in a meeting if they see somebody else going, that they're like, oh, well, that person will just fill me in. That's not a great way to be responsible at work, but if you hide the attendee list, that sometimes will motivate people to just be more responsible for their own attendance. So those options are there. You also, for example, can change how this appears on your attendees' calendars and on yours. So for example, when I know I'm going to be out on vacation, I'll send a meeting hold, like a calendar invite to my team so that they have a visual reminder that I'm not there. But I don't need them and their calendar to show out of office. So I'll put Stephanie out of office, and then I will say, show it free. So as I invite them to that calendar invitation, it's not blocking their calendar, but they have that visual reminder that I'm gone. So that's a good way to kind of just manage how you communicate with your team when you're in and out of the office. Also, if you're actually out of office, marking out of office is super helpful. And I'll show you why and some of our automatic replies and response options here in a little while. But again, super important to know that that exists. You also can determine the reminder. Do you want people to get an email reminder? Do you want them to be notified a week before, a day before, an hour before, at the time of the event? Do you not want them to be reminded and yourself to be reminded? You can change those options here as well. This tagging is actually super important as it comes time to think about the Teams meeting that's generated with a meeting. If you're not meeting in person and you're meeting with Teams as well, the confidential and highly confidential will change the share and the availability of the recordings and the transcriptions and things like that, depending on how you categorize your meeting. And then for me, I like to have insights about how I'm spending my time on my calendar. I've been really bad about it the last 2 weeks of tagging and categorizing my time on my calendar because I've just had so much. But typically you'll see my calendar looks like a light bright. It's all different colors all over the place. And it's not because I think that's cute. It's because I've created a set of tags that let me know how I'm spending my time. And that's actually super helpful when it comes time for me to do my evaluations with my manager. I can say, hey, I'm spending 60% of my time in customer and external meetings, which is how I should be spending the bulk of my time. The bulk of my time should be spent with you all, helping you get the work done. I shouldn't be spending a ton of time with must attend required internal meetings, right? So if we're feeling, as employees, if I'm feeling the pressure of not having time to do the work that I know I need to do, I have a paper trail here to be able to back it up and say, hey, listen, there's too much of this. Like every Friday we meet for 2 hours and talk about what meetings we have next week. Waste of time. We got to get rid of that. And we got to categorize it as some other time to be able to take action. So that's what that is. You see that we've got the threaded message here because we did the reply all with a meeting, but again, I'm a Copilot user, and so I want to show you what this looks like if I didn't have that email thread and I wanted to put context into a meeting. I can click Draft with Copilot and say, meeting about Purview for best practices. I can click Generate, and Copilot is going to write a draft and add an agenda right inside of the invite. I can edit that, I can amend it, or I can say, actually, this is great. I want to keep it. So now I have an agenda. I have everything I need in my invitation, and I did not have to type that all myself. All right. I'm not going to send this because these people would be like, what actually are you doing? So I'm just going to delete this. But again, great way to use reply all with a meeting, use our scheduling assistant, and add some context inside of the meeting, and use your options at the top ribbon. So let me pause there and see, is there any questions popping up in the chat? Okay, anything else that I should circle back to or that's top of mind for them?
Casey Davis asked, at the end, I was curious to know why you don't use subfolders anymore.
Okay, let me jump to that because I kind of gave you the teaser with Draft with Copilot. So let me go back to just my inbox. All right. Two reasons why I do not use subfolders anymore. All of my emails from everybody about everything are now in just this long list of inbox, right? A couple of them are flagged maybe, but people underutilize the search capability inside of Outlook. So they think that the only way they're going to be able to find what they're looking for is if they take action to put it in a subfolder so that they've created a neural network of knowing how to get back to it. It's the same thing with OneDrive, how we don't really care where we remember where we put things in OneDrive anymore, right? Some people are type A about it and they want a very specific folder structure. And like, if you grew up in the era of like Oregon Trail and like word processing class in elementary and middle school, you had a computer teacher that made you learn the file structure of where to double click for everything and how to store things. It was like a grade. So I get that. But for me, I'm very quickly going to come in here and say, if I'm looking for a specific email from a person, like this is my boss, I'm going to just put his name in and it's going to come up with a chronological list of emails from him. I can also say, let me move this out of the way. I can also say PDF, like I want something that he sent me that has a PDF. And it will just circulate those in chronological order. So you see, I'm just using the search capabilities to do that. If I delete his name, it's now going to return just the things with PDF, no matter who they're from, in chronological order. I can even put a date in if I want to, et cetera, et cetera. So I say that to say that's not really AI. That's just the power of the Microsoft Graph. Everybody can use search inside of Outlook, but it really, I think, is underutilized. We assume that we have to keep responsibility for where everything lives, and we don't. The other thing that really saves me a ton of time is Copilot. And you see that it's baked in because, again, I have the paid license. I can touch Copilot up here on the top, and you can see it's giving me some options, some prompts. But this is not specific to my Outlook, okay? This is just Copilot in general. But what I can do is have a prompt to say, I've been out of office for 2 weeks. I'm afraid I've missed something important for follow-up. Please create a task list with context on what across email, Teams, chats, etc. I need to follow up on. Let's see what it gives me. Again, I used to have to do folders and flagging and worry about my own timelines and figure out what came in through Teams, what came in through Outlook. I don't have to do that anymore. It's looking literally through everything. It's looking through my meetings. It's glitching out visually, so I'm sorry. Sometimes when you share screen, it does that, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's done processing. This means that I don't have to be responsible for all of this information because it's now got this captured for me. So it's looking across everything and it's categorized it. So in my emails, here are 5 emails with context, the subject, who it's from, and the details of what I maybe have not followed up on. Here are the Teams messages, who it's from, the details, what I need to follow up on, or just know. And again, just with everything in Copilot, it's giving me the actual annotation and link out to where that lives so I can go and find my own context should I need to. And then I've also got these meetings that I really need to stay aware of. There's 6 of them. So I can change that prompt however I want to. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks. I can change the timeline of that. I can change if I just want it to look in my inbox, if I'm looking for a specific person's content that they shared with me. The power of this is that I can open it as wide or as narrow as I want it to, and I don't have to be responsible for where things live, what folder I put them in, or what action I took. So that's what I mean when I say it's sort of obsolete in my workflow now to do subfolders and a lot of these rules, because it's it's work that I can free myself of and let Copilot do it, and then worry about the actual follow-ups and the content myself. If that's helpful. I want to show you also this prompt here because it can be really, really helpful. So it's going to say, find time to meet with, and I'm going to just put a person's name in here. It'll also, when you do we call it a whack, but when you do the backslash in Copilot, it's going to open up this tray for you to attach files, people, etc. when you have the license, the paid license. So let's say I want to find a time to meet with Chad Adams next week. Oops, next week about, and then I can actually pull a file in too if I wanted to. So let's just say, not that. Let's just say I want to talk about AI Day at Auburn. All right, now it's going to automatically look across my calendar and Chad's calendar, find a time next week that we're both available. It looks like Monday at 10:30 to 11, we're free, and it has banded the document into that email invitation on Outlook automatically. So if I go to view it, it'll pop out here in just a second. It takes a bit of a minute. I don't have to view it if I don't want to. I can just authorize it to say, go ahead and send that invitation. I can choose to edit it if I want to. But again, really cool way to find the time, tag the content in, and go from there. So that's the power of Copilot across Outlook. And again, that's revolutionized how I use Outlook and Calendar because I have that AI assistant working alongside of me. A lot of the things I used to do, I just no longer have to do, frankly. Okay, any other questions that came up from that?
Yeah, can you create rules to categorize the meetings?
Rules to categorize the meetings. Maybe. I have never done that. I'm not a big rules gal in life or in Outlook. I like to do my own thing and go a little off script. So what I do, for example, is like this Ignite keynote session. I just right click on it. I go down to my category and I tag it as purple. That didn't change the color because everything looks red. This one, I can right click, I go to categorize, and I know it's going to be partner conversation, right? So you can see some of them. If they're a recurring meeting, I've tagged them upon creation. So they always show up as the same tag. If there's things I've been invited to, when I accept it, I'm not necessarily tagging them at the time. So I have a habit for myself on Fridays when I do my weekly checkout. I have like a little virtual commute that I complete at the end of a Friday afternoon. I usually have a calendar hold that says just calendar hygiene, and I go in and look at the next week. I respond, see how many things I have tentative here. I wasn't good about next week yet because it's not Friday, but leaving a bunch of tentative stuff on your calendar is rude. Number one, it unnecessarily clusters your view and your time. But number two, people have invited you specifically because they want to know yes or no if you're coming. So when you do the tentative thing, it's not helpful really to anybody. So again, on that Friday, I will frequently look ahead for the week and respond to anything that I've just left as unresponded to. And at the same time I do that, I will tag and categorize the meetings that I'm attending. So that's just a workflow that I will do myself. The other thing that I think is interesting to note about calendar is I look at the work week myself, but some people like to look at the month. I just have too much going on in a day to look at a month view. It's super overwhelming. But some people like to have this agenda view, right? Like that walks through the day. I just can't do that because I have, again, conflicting things all at the same time. It doesn't visually do what I need it to do. But if you're somebody who only has one meeting at a time for the whole day, that agenda view or that day view might be really helpful for you. If you only want to look at one day, you can also go, let's say, for example, I want to look at 3 days at a time, etc. You can change the way that you see that. I also can, because I've created categories, I can actually just select, for example, like I want to only see partner meetings that I'm having or customer meetings that I'm having. So once you start to utilize some of those things, it becomes really helpful. For sure. Okay, any other questions on the rules, categorizations, et cetera, before I jump in somewhere else?
There was a question on Copilot.
Sure.
how does it work in a HIPAA environment or FERPA also for that matter?
So because Copilot sits inside of your Microsoft tenant and it is not training a large language model and it comes with commercial data protection, it's automatically FERPA compliant because of your BAA with Microsoft. We can't ever say that our products are HIPAA compliant. Nobody really can say that unless they're hosting it and controlling it 100% for you. Because it's up to your institution on how you've tuned your security settings to either comply with or be in compliance with HIPAA. So we are HIPAA ready. All of our tool sets are HIPAA ready because we don't, save the data, we don't sell the data, we don't train a model on the data. All of that's off the table. I can't say the same is true for the GPTs that people are using and any other name your AI that I know is happening across campus. A lot of people are using whatever they want. That's some of why the free version of Copilot, we're trying to just get the word out to institutions because that at least has the commercial data protection, which does not train the model and keeps your data safe and not saved for anybody else. You'll start to see now in your OneDrive, you will have a Copilot chats folder. So your data, your queries, your prompts will be saved for you for a short period of time, but they are not shared with the institution and they're not shared outside of the institution. So I hope that kind of answers it. It's sort of a non-answer because nobody can say they're HIPAA compliant. That's kind of a red herring, but good. That's a good question. Any other questions so far? Okay, let me go back over to my inbox and let me just show you a brand new mail and a couple of things that I think are cool. First of all, the anatomy of my email signature. I hate an email signature with a bunch of crap in it. Mine has too much. I don't know how to eliminate any more of it. I've tried to slim it down a lot. Because we just won this award, everybody puts it on there for a period of time. That'll be gone soon. So atta girl, we are all great, and then I'll take it off because it's just taking up too much visual real estate. But it's important that you create a templatized institutional email signature. People who put a bunch of scrolly holographic text at the bottom, it's really not accessible and it's super distracting to people. We have that engine at Microsoft through our brand department where you go in and you can templatize your email signature. You all might have that as well. I think you do. So some of this is templatized. For example, it automatically pulls your specific title. It pulls my name based on my Active Directory login. It gives me the logo. It automatically puts my office number as my Teams number. I manually added my cell phone number on there, my email hyperlink in case somebody needs that. And then the book time to meet with me is my bookings link to my bookings page, right? So really anything somebody would need from me from a contact perspective should live in there. The other thing that you'll see, again, because I'm licensed for it, so don't get frustrated if you don't see it, is this draft with Copilot button in a brand new message. So I talked to you about Copilot use for scrubbing what's already there. It can also draft something for me so that I can free my cognitive self up to do some other things. So for example, I can use one of these little suggested prompts, give an update, make an announcement, create a newsletter, a short and friendly message. Let's just say I want to send a short and friendly message about, let's call it Microsoft Week, to the UA team. Let's see what we get. Okay, so you can see it's created a quick email. I'm going to say this out loud, and I hope people hear this from a deep place in their soul and spirit. Copilot is not the authority. It is my first draft engine. I am the pilot, right? At the end of the day, if the plane goes down, it's still my fault. So you should not authorize any AI, no matter what it is, to have full and complete responsibility over what you take action on. It is a great first draft. So I might look through this. I might make some edits to it. It's honestly, it's too long, so I want to make it shorter. I can do that automatically. Good, super concise. Let's go back to Copilot. Let's keep it, and then I can edit from there. Too many exclamation points stress me out, so let's do that. Looking forward to seeing you all. Too many exclamation points. So again, I'm doing a couple of minute adjustments to make it more specific. I might add some details here. I can reprompt Copilot as many times as I want to. Totally fine. The other thing that I can do is if I drop down Copilot, I can actually have it coach me. If I want to start the email myself, I can have Copilot come in and coach my draft. So let's see here, it's analyzing my email. It's going to give me some points. It's friendly and motivating, but here are some suggestions. Instead of just a reminder, which can sound a bit casual, consider I wanted to remind you, right? Instead of let's take full advantage, we can do let's make the most of. So these are just, again, coaching ideas. I find this tool super helpful because of two things. One, I'm a concise kind of gal. Sometimes I am curt to an error. People find it to be rude because I'm just trying to get to the point and I don't put enough hearts and minds in some of my communications, right? Like in person, I'm very warm and friendly and casual, but sometimes I'm just trying to get to the point in an email and people read between the lines and insert an attitude, which I do not intend. So this coaching has helped me massage that and smooth that a little bit and just remind me to take a beat and to maybe be a little bit more, more friendly in my tone. I can also look at the reader sentiment. So I can add things like, it's a great chance to learn and grow together, to emphasize benefits, to make the email more engaging, leave strong positive impressions. So that's a really great way to coach not only what I'm putting out there, but to see how other people might respond to it and to kind of generate more of that or elicit more of that type of response. And then clarity as well. Yeah.
We have a question in the chat. If you prefer to end your messages a certain way, can you customize the response or does Copilot learn as you edit over time?
Yeah, 100%. So the more you use this and the more you have Copilot draft with you, it will start to learn your preferences. That's why you'll see sometimes people make fun of me because I didn't actually do it. And I made a mental note of it when I used Copilot earlier to find the last 2 weeks worth of stuff. But I always say, hey, Copilot, hope you're having a great day, for two reasons. One, because it will learn how I speak to people based on how I interact with it, and it will customize how it returns content to me based on that. And number two, on the off chance we're going into the Terminator reality, I want them to remember I'm a casual and kind person. Okay? Like I'm future proofing a little bit against the funny fringe. But again, it will learn from you and your exposure to it over time. Super important. Okay, so I could choose to apply every single one of these suggestions if I want to. That's a little bit brazen, but here's the rewrite. All right, it's taking all of those things into consideration. I can either insert it below what I already had drafted, or I can replace what I had drafted. So now if I replace, notice it's getting rid of my email signature template automatically. That's a glitch that we've reported to engineering. I don't love that it does that. So I usually just insert below and then I hack it to pieces and put it where I want it. So again, super important to know what the future could look like with that Copilot license, but also if you don't have the Copilot license, you still have some really other cool features in drafting your notes out. Carlos talked about this a little bit yesterday in the Loop session, but you have Loop components that you can now add into your emails, which means that people can live collaborate without leaving the email. So let me just show you that really quickly if you've never seen it before. Let's say that I'm prepping ahead for Microsoft Week. I want to just do a quick Microsoft Week schedule, right? I can go ahead and put in a table. Let's do date, time, and let's add one more to the right and do a location. So I can just get something set up like this, and then depending on who I send it to, the minute they get that in their inbox, they can be in that loop collaborating with me in real time, and I'm not ever leaving my actual inbox, right? I'm going to see it live in that sent email. They'll see it live in their received email. So loops are really great, like micro components of live collaboration that we don't have to spin up a whole new Word doc or a whole new Excel doc. We can really just work in line and in tandem. So curious in here if anybody has used Loop, or online if you have found the value of Loop as well. Anybody used Loop yet? Okay. It's really powerful. Yeah. You're fine. Yep. Yeah. It will stay, well, it won't be on the screen anymore because you've gone to something else in your reading pane.
Repeat the question.
Say again?
Will you repeat her question?
Oh yeah, sorry, repeating the question. She asked if I send this email and I move on to something else, where does that go? How do I see it again? Is it staying minimized? Where does it go? So let's say, for example, I send this, I'm not going to, I'm just going to delete it. But then I move on and I go back over here to another email, which I'm actually going to report as junk because it's another email from Sticker Mule. So I no longer see it, right? I've moved on to other things, but I can get back to it because Loop is over here on my left rail. I can actually go into all of my loops and I will see it there and be able to see people in there and interacting with it. Carlos modeled yesterday that you can go to your sent email and look at it there. That's weird to me. I'd rather just go into Loop and find it. So again, this is one that we worked on yesterday in a demo, but you see it looks like an email, right? Because that was an email that was sent, but the Loop component lives inside that email and we were upvoting for dinner options. And so I can still take action on that whenever I want to. And that's how I get back to it. That's a personal preference of how you want to return to your Loop components. But for me, that's the workflow I use. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can pin it as well. And then again, for me, so Loop is sitting inside of my big Outlook tray right now, but I can open up Loop like loop.microsoft.com on the web and just keep that up all the time if I want to. A lot of different ways to manage it. Yeah, for sure. And you can do that right here by opening Loop. Great question. Anything else coming through on the chat?
Yeah, we had one come through about Loop that is included in our A5 license
Yes.
applied to faculty and staff accounts. Is there a Loop standalone app or is it just browser-based?
So there's not a client version of the app. It's web-based. Loop is included in your licensing. There's no extra purchase needed for Loop. I use it mostly in Outlook, but in Teams. Teams really predominantly. I can show you really quickly what that looks like here. No, I can't right now because I've got too many chats with proprietary info, so I can't share my Teams. But we have a group chat for my V team, Carlos and Bill and other people that you've met. I have on the bottom, when you're typing text to a chat, you'll see that same Loop icon. You can create a component right from in there. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday if you attended that session. I use it a lot for that. If we're doing a quick agenda build and I want everyone to collaborate on the agenda together, we use it for that. If we are creating a to-do list, you can assign people, dates, and times to tasks, and that feeds into your planner app in Teams, which is also just FYI, in Outlook, you have to do over here, which is essentially that linkage as well. So if I was assigned something, for example, this came out of a Loop yesterday, it's going to show up as a task. No matter where it comes from, it's all going to filter into one view for me. And then I did mention earlier, when you flag an email, one time you have to set it up so that flagged emails become to-dos, but any flagged email automatically becomes a to-do for me in my list of tasks. So if I'm not looking at my email, if I'm in Teams and I'm looking at Planner and all my task list, those flagged emails will come up there as well. And I can actually just see, here's the actual email. I can open it back in Outlook if I want to. I can add a due date to it. Let's just say I want it to be due tomorrow. It does not repeat, though you can repeat tasks, right? Let's say every Tuesday, your manager wants you to send a report to them of some kind. You can create that, revolving task for yourself. You can pick a category, customer one, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a lot of options with tasks that you generate, even if they're flagged emails, even if they come from a Loop, even if they're ones that you just type in on your day.
I'd like to add that we also had a session on Microsoft Loop yesterday at 2:45. That content will be uploaded to our OIT YouTube at the end of the week.
Beautiful. Okay, so the Loop session will be uploaded to the OIT YouTube page, which will be great because that was a really helpful session to look at all those options as well. Loop's unbreakable. There's some things that I wouldn't encourage you to go and play with unless you kind of knew what you wanted to structure it around, but they're spin upable, deletable. You don't need admin rights to do any of that. So I think it's a pretty safe place to go in and play. If you've not spent time in Loop, you can kind of investigate that on your own without breaking anything or setting up yourself for frustration down the road. Great. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left, I think, in the session. So I'll end the content here and stop sharing my screen and just ask any last minute questions or resources that you might need from me before we end. And you know where to find us. We're here all week. We'll be in lots of sessions. So if something percolates in your mind after this session, feel free to pop into any of the other sessions and drop a question in the chat. We can answer that way. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you're a little bit more productive and happy in Outlook from today on. Thanks for attending.